It was an ordinary afternoon at the park, with families enjoying the warmth of the sun and children playing on the swings and slides. The sounds of laughter and joy filled the air as people strolled along the walking paths, some with their dogs on leashes, others simply enjoying the peaceful atmosphere. Among them was a young girl named Emily, who was only 6 years old. She had blonde curls and a pink t-shirt that fluttered in the breeze as she ran around, playing with her favorite toy ball. Her parents, sitting on a nearby bench, kept a close eye on her as she darted from one spot to another. They trusted the park and felt safe as they watched their daughter play. Nearby, a German Shepherd K9 dog named Max was working alongside his handler, Officer Adams. Max was a trained police dog, well known in the community for his impeccable skills and calm demeanor. He had been trained to perform various tasks, from searching for criminals to helping with rescue operations. Max was always calm and collected, until now. Max stood tall, his strong, muscular frame cutting a striking silhouette against the bright afternoon sky. His coat was a mixture of deep black and rich brown, glistening under the sun. His eyes, sharp and focused, scanned the environment around him. He wasn't there to play. He was there on duty. Officer Adams stood nearby, his hands resting on his hips, observing his dog's movements. It was routine for them to train in public places, and the K9 unit had always been trusted by the community. They were seen as a symbol of safety, a reminder that the police were always prepared for anything. However, what no one could predict was what would happen next. It was in a split second, like a bolt of lightning striking the earth, that Max suddenly sprang into action. The peaceful atmosphere of the park was shattered as the dog sprinted across the open field, his paws kicking up dust as he ran. The people around him barely had time to react, watching in stunned silence as Max's powerful legs carried him closer to Emily. At first, Emily didn't understand what was happening. She stopped playing with her ball, her small hands frozen in midair, as the K9 dog charged toward her. Her parents' voices were drowned out by the pounding of Max's paws against the grass, but their concern grew with every second. Emily's father stood up from the bench, eyes wide with fear, his heart racing as he saw the dog rapidly approaching his daughter. Max wasn't just running. He was heading straight for Emily. The people around gasped, unsure if it was an attack or some kind of mistake. A sense of panic began to spread through the park as the dog moved closer. Officer Adams shouted, "Max, no." His voice was firm, but there was a hint of panic behind it. Max was a well-trained dog, always under control, and the handler's voice reflected confusion as to why the dog had suddenly broken free from his command. In the blink of an eye, Max was upon Emily. The little girl gasped as the large dog stopped just in front of her. And then, to everyone's shock, Max gently grabbed her by the sleeve of her jacket. His teeth didn't bite down, but instead they grasped the fabric with precision, tugging at it with purpose. Emily stumbled back, but she wasn't hurt. She was confused, her wide eyes staring up at the dog, unsure of what was happening. The scene became chaotic. Her parents rushed toward her, their faces filled with worry, as they shouted her name. But Emily wasn't crying. She wasn't scared. Instead, she looked up at the dog, who was standing perfectly still in front of her. Max's ears were alert, his gaze focused not on Emily, but on something further ahead. Something, or someone, in the distance. Officer Adams sprinted toward them, his eyes locked on Max, trying to regain control of the situation. The handler's heart was racing as he approached. Max had always been well-behaved, but something was off today. Something had triggered the dog to act out of the ordinary, and he wasn't about to let anything happen to the young girl in his care. As Officer Adams reached Max, he placed a hand on the dog's strong back, speaking in a calm, steady voice. Max slowly released his grip on Emily's sleeve, but he didn't move away from her. Instead, he stayed close, his body tense, eyes scanning the surroundings. Officer Adams was still trying to understand what was happening. Why had Max done this? Why had he singled out Emily, of all people? And then, just as quickly as the panic had started, everything fell quiet. The park was still. People waited with bated breath, unsure of what was going to happen next. Max remained poised, his instincts working overtime. But what was it that he had sensed? Was there danger lurking nearby, hidden from everyone else's view? What was the reason behind this shocking moment? The answer was yet to come, but the tension in the air was palpable. The unexpected event had only just begun to unfold. The park, once filled with the peaceful hum of families enjoying their day, was now frozen in time. People stood motionless, unsure of what to do, as the air around them thickened with uncertainty. Emily's parents, having rushed to her side, were still in shock. Their eyes flicked from their daughter to Max, who remained unyielding, his focus fixed on something in the distance. Emily, still standing there with wide eyes, wasn't crying or afraid, but her parents could see the unease in her small frame. They pulled her closer, gently guiding her toward the safety of their arms. But Max didn't move. The K9 dog was not leaving, and neither was his handler, Officer Adams. Max, the German shepherd who had always been the symbol of protection, was now standing still, his ears perked up, and his body tense. His intense gaze never wavered. He wasn't looking at Emily, nor at her parents. Instead, his eyes were trained on the park's tree line, where shadows flickered between the trunks of tall oak trees. It was there, in the distance, where something unseen lurked. Officer Adams, his voice steady but filled with concern, knelt down beside Max. "What's wrong, boy?" he murmured, his hand running gently over Max's back. But the dog didn't respond to the calming touch. Instead, Max's eyes remained fixed, and his muscles tensed further. The handler, who had worked with Max for years, knew this dog better than anyone. He could sense when Max was uneasy, but this was different. This wasn't just unease. This was instinct, pure, unfiltered instinct. "Stay here, Emily," her father said softly, his voice trembling with a mix of worry and confusion. He looked around the park, as if expecting an answer to the question that was on everyone's mind. What was happening? Why had Max acted the way he did? Was there some kind of danger no one else could see? The air was thick with the buzz of whispered conversations among the parkours. Some people took out their phones, trying to capture the strange scene unfolding in front of them. Others moved closer, instinctively feeling the tension building in the air. The handler looked up from Max, his gaze sweeping across the crowd, looking for any signs of something that could explain the dog's strange behavior. Max's posture remained rigid, unwavering. The park, once a place of carefree joy, had now become a place of heightened alert. Emily's parents stood protectively in front of their daughter, shielding her from the dog's intense stare. The little girl, who had initially been confused, now clung to her parents, her small fingers wrapped tightly around her mother's hand. She could sense the shift in the air, the sudden heaviness that had replaced the carefree energy of moments ago. Officer Adams was puzzled. Max had been trained to detect all sorts of threats: drugs, explosives, and even signs of danger from people with malicious intent. But there was nothing outwardly threatening in sight. No one had raised their voice, and there were no obvious signs of trouble. Yet Max, the ever-loyal protector, was on high alert. He seemed to sense something the rest of them couldn't. In an attempt to calm Max, Officer Adams called out to his fellow officers, "Check the area. Look for anything unusual." His voice was calm, but his mind raced. He had worked with Max for a long time, and he knew this dog well enough to understand that Max wasn't reacting randomly. There was something in the park, something dangerous, that no one else could see. The dog's behavior suggested that there was an immediate threat, but what was it? As the officers began scanning the park, some walked toward the area Max was fixated on. They carefully observed the trees and the walking paths, searching for any sign of trouble. But everything appeared calm on the surface. Nothing out of the ordinary. Meanwhile, the parkours started to get restless. Whispers grew louder as more people began to gather, drawn by the tension in the air. Some people speculated that it was a prank, while others murmured about the dog's behavior, unsure of what it meant. The situation seemed to grow more uncertain with each passing minute. Officer Adams stood, his hand resting on Max's shoulder, feeling the dog's muscles twitch as though ready to spring into action. The handler's mind raced as he thought about every possible scenario. Could someone be hiding in the park? Was there a criminal in the area? Or was this simply a case of Max reacting to an unknown stimulus that was beyond his control? Max suddenly let out a low growl, a warning rumble from deep within his chest. The dog's attention shifted slightly, and his head turned to focus on something else, something that had just moved in the shadows. Officer Adams' heart skipped a beat. The mystery was deepening. The tension was palpable, and with every passing second, the growing sense of danger made the air feel heavier. "Stay close, Emily," her father whispered, pulling her even closer. The park was no longer a place of play and laughter. It had become a space where fear and suspicion lingered, waiting for the truth to reveal itself. And as the search for answers intensified, the tension in the park only continued to build. Everyone could feel it. Something was coming. Something no one could have anticipated. The atmosphere in the park was tense, charged with an energy that was impossible to ignore. As the moments stretched on, everyone's eyes were on Max. The trained K9 dog, normally a picture of calm and control, stood as rigid as a statue, his focus unwavering on the dense tree line in the distance. Officer Adams, unable to shake his own confusion, stood beside Max, watching the dog's every move. The handler's mind raced, piecing together the puzzle of what had happened. What was Max sensing that everyone else could not? Max's growl deepened, vibrating through the air like a warning signal. He began to pace slowly, his ears pricked and his nose twitching with heightened awareness. It was as if the dog was attuned to something invisible, a presence that had remained hidden from everyone else. The park, which had once been a carefree sanctuary, had now become an unpredictable and unsettling place. The atmosphere was thick with fear, and whispers spread among the crowd. People were beginning to move away, unsure of what was happening, but unable to tear themselves away from the spectacle unfolding before them. "Max, what is it, boy?" Officer Adams muttered under his breath, his eyes scanning the park. There had to be something, some explanation, but the handler couldn't make sense of it. His dog was on edge, and every instinct in him told him that something was amiss, something that went beyond the ordinary. Suddenly, Max's posture shifted. His body relaxed just slightly, and his head snapped towards a group of trees off to the left. A movement caught the dog's keen eyes. Something flickered in the shadows between the trunks. Without hesitation, Max started to move, his powerful legs carrying him swiftly across the field, past the stunned onlookers. Officer Adams followed immediately, calling after him. "Max, wait. Come back." The handler shouted, but the dog didn't listen. There was no mistaking it now. Max was heading straight for the source of the disturbance. The tension reached a breaking point as the crowd parted to make way for the dog and his handler. As Officer Adams reached the trees, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Standing there, hidden in the underbrush, was a man, a figure who had been barely visible in the shadows. But now, as the dog approached, the figure stood up in full view. He was dressed in dark clothing, his face partially obscured by a baseball cap. The man's eyes flickered nervously as he realized he had been spotted, but before he could react, Max was on him. The K9, with incredible speed and precision, leaped forward, his teeth bared in a warning snarl. The man froze, panic sweeping over his face as he took a step back. Officer Adams reached them just as the man raised his hands in surrender. His body was tense, his eyes wide with fear, but there was something about the situation that didn't add up. Max's attention shifted from the man to something else, something hidden in his bag, which was half open, lying on the ground next to him. Officer Adams stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "What's in the bag?" he demanded, his voice firm. The man didn't answer immediately. He stood there, looking trapped, his eyes darting nervously between the dog and the officer. The handler's eyes narrowed. Something wasn't right. There was a growing sense of dread in his stomach. "Show me what's inside," Officer Adams ordered again. The man, realizing there was no way out, hesitated before opening the bag slowly. The officer's eyes widened in shock as the contents were revealed. Inside the bag were small, neatly wrapped packages of what appeared to be drugs. The realization hit like a hammer. The man was a drug dealer, and he had been hiding in the park, watching the people around him, waiting for the right moment to make his move. But Max had sensed the danger long before anyone else had. The canine dog had been trained to detect substances like these, and Max's incredible nose had picked up the scent from a distance, well before anyone could see the man. Max's sudden action, the snatching of Emily, had not been an attack at all, but a protective instinct, a reaction to the presence of someone with ill intentions. Max had spotted the threat before it had even been visible to the human eye. The truth was shocking. Everyone had assumed that Max was reacting out of control, but in reality, the dog had been saving Emily from a dangerous situation. The drug dealer's presence in the park had been no accident, and if not for Max, no one would have known he was there until it was too late. As the man was handcuffed and led away by the officers, the park slowly began to calm. The crowd, still shaken, started to disperse, some whispering in disbelief about the dog's incredible instincts. Emily's parents, still holding their daughter close, exchanged glances of relief and gratitude. Emily, who had been terrified moments before, now looked up at Max with wide, curious eyes. She hadn't understood what had just happened, but she knew one thing. The dog who had frightened her moments ago had actually kept her safe. Officer Adams knelt down beside Max, stroking his head. "Good boy," he whispered, his voice filled with admiration and awe. Max's job was done. He had protected the innocent, detected the threat, and saved the day. But what had started as an alarming and confusing event had turned into a testament to the power of a dog's instincts and the unwavering bond between a handler and his canine companion. As the park began to return to normal, the crowd that had gathered was left in awe. The story of the brave canine who had protected a little girl from danger would be one told for years to come. And for Emily, Max would always be remembered as the hero who had watched over her when no one else could see the danger lurking in the shadows. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a soft golden hue over the park as the chaos slowly faded into the past. The once tense atmosphere now gave way to a quiet sense of relief. The park, which had moments ago been filled with confusion and fear, was slowly returning to normal. Families resumed their picnics, children began playing again, and the sound of laughter, although slightly subdued, filled the air. The events of the day, however, would not soon be forgotten. For Emily and her family, the memories of what had happened that afternoon would stay with them forever. Her parents, still recovering from the shock, held their daughter tightly in their arms, grateful beyond words that she was unharmed. Emily, though confused about the events that had transpired, felt a deep sense of wonder about the dog that had, in her eyes, been both frightening and heroic. The memories of Max rushing toward her, grabbing her jacket, and then protecting her from harm played out in her mind like a scene from a dream. But it was Officer Adams, standing beside Max, who truly understood the significance of what had just happened. He had worked with Max for years, training and honing the dog's abilities, and today it was clear that the bond they shared was something extraordinary. Max had not only reacted with instinct, but had also shown the remarkable intelligence and training that had made him one of the best K-9 officers in the department. He had sensed the danger, protected the girl, and prevented a potentially dangerous situation from escalating further. For Officer Adams, today was a reminder of just how powerful the bond between a handler and their dog could be. As the park settled down, people began to approach Officer Adams and Max, their voices filled with awe and gratitude. One by one, they praised the dog for his bravery. "That was incredible," one man said, his voice full of admiration. "Your dog saved that little girl's life." Others nodded in agreement, their faces full of appreciation. Emily's parents, still in disbelief, walked over to Officer Adams and Max. Her father, his voice thick with emotion, extended a hand toward the handler. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "You and your dog, you both saved our daughter. We owe you everything." Officer Adams smiled, though his eyes were filled with pride. "It's Max who deserves the praise," he said, reaching down to gently pat the dog's head. "He's the real hero here." Max, though exhausted from the day's events, wagged his tail gently, as if acknowledging the praise without seeking it. He was a dog of few words, but a hero in every sense. The story of what had happened in the park spread quickly. The local news covered the incident, and soon, the entire community was talking about the brave K9 who had acted without hesitation to protect a child. Emily's family was interviewed, sharing their gratitude and relief, but it was Max who captured the hearts of everyone who heard the story. The dog's quick action, his unwavering loyalty, and his protective instincts were now the talk of the town. The following week, a special ceremony was held at the police station to honor Max for his bravery. Officer Adams stood proudly beside his partner as Max was presented with a special medal of recognition. The community had come together to celebrate the heroism of a dog that had given everything to protect someone in need. As the medal was placed around Max's neck, a round of applause echoed through the room. People cheered, clapped, and wiped away tears of pride. Emily, who had been invited to the ceremony, sat beside her parents, her wide eyes filled with admiration for the dog who had once scared her, but had now become her hero. She approached Max with a shy smile, holding out her small hand. The dog, as gentle as ever, nuzzled her hand in response, and the little girl's heart swelled with love and gratitude for the animal who had saved her. In the days that followed, Max became a local legend. Children in the park would gather around Officer Adams and ask about the heroic dog who had protected a little girl. They would pet Max and give him treats, and he would accept their attention with the same calm, unassuming demeanor he had always shown. For Max, it was just another day of doing his job. But for everyone else, it was a day that would forever be remembered as the day a K9 dog became more than just a working animal. He became a symbol of courage, loyalty, and the incredible bond between humans and dogs. As the weeks passed, Emily and her family often visited the park, always stopping by to see Max and Officer Adams. Emily would run up to Max, her eyes filled with love, and the two would share a special bond, one forged in the heat of a life-threatening moment. For Emily, Max would always be the dog who had not only saved her life, but had also shown her the true meaning of bravery. And for Officer Adams, it was a reminder of why he and Max did the work they did, because sometimes a single act of heroism could change everything. Max's legacy lived on in the hearts of those who knew him, a reminder that the true heroes are not always the ones who wear badges, but often the ones with four paws and an unshakable sense of loyalty.